And right now it's time for that time when we have our special guest. Tonight's special guest is Colin Gardner. A classic baby boomer, Colin has travelled the world, settled in New Zealand and opened a fabulous new restaurant called Prohibition. It's one of our favourite Ponsonby restaurants with a fabulous theme, taking us all the way back to the 1920s. We welcome Colin Gardner as our special guest on The Beat Goes On.
Good to meet you, Gerard. Good to be here.
And you are a classic baby boomer.
Yes, born in 1950.
1950?
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy to remember your age.
Yeah, it's easy. Probably too easy to remember.
So you're turning 60 soon, or you
Yes, in August this year I'll turn 60.
So you're 59 at the moment.
That's right. Yeah.
Now the next thing that's going to happen is our viewers are going to say, that's a strange accent, where's that from?
Yeah. Well, I'm a South African born and bred. I grew up in the Eastern Cape, mainly in East London on the coast. And after 50 years in South Africa, I took the bold step after 20 years as a partner with KPMG to move to our Moscow practice as a partner there.
Did you request that you go and work in, or did they send you there?
No, I wasn't sent to Siberia. I actually made the decision myself to go there.
Yeah.
I went there for a look-see visit. I spent a whole week in Moscow and then spent the weekend in St. Petersburg, and it's fair to say that I fell in love with the place.
Now everybody thought that Moscow was everything was out of control, Yeltsin, there was deals being done, there was oligarchs and billionaires, and it was a wild frontier. Was it, or was that just the news media misreporting everything?
Yeah, I think the news media got a lot of hype to it. Moscow is a beautiful city, the architecture is unbelievable. I had a lot of experiences with partners visiting from other cities and other countries. They were amazed when they arrived in Moscow because they had that misconception or the idea in the head that it was like a James Bond movie, you know. And I must admit, when you first arrive at Sheremetyevo Airport, you get that distinct impression. It's probably one of the most depressing airports in the world. Nobody smiles there, and you kind of get the feeling that you're going to be interrogated by passport control. However, once you get in your car and you head into the city, you come into a city that is cosmopolitan. There are 20 million people living in and around Moscow. There are advertising billboards on every possible space that you can see. There's a very popular pop song in Russia at the moment called Moscow Never Sleeps, and that is so true. You can get caught in a traffic jam at 3 o'clock in the morning. And
3 o'clock in the morning, a traffic jam.
Yeah. There's something like 3 million motor vehicles on the road at any given time in Moscow. So the potential for a traffic jam is there.
So they certainly became a capitalist country very quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, Gerard, I've got to say to you that capitalism was alive and well even in the times of communism.
Yeah.
And there are some extremely wealthy people
in Russia.
And to give you an example, the KPMG practice over the 9-year period that I was there grew by more than 50% per annum.
Wow, that's great growth.
Yeah. But that reflected what was happening with a lot of our clients. A lot of our clients were growing at the same pace, if not faster.
When did the horizon of New Zealand come into your consciousness?
Gerard, it's actually quite a long story, but let me try and make it as short as possible. One of the things I got to doing while I was in Moscow was to visit the numerous restaurants in Moscow. My business partner and I, who worked for me while I was in Moscow, every weekend used to go to a different restaurant. We soon got to thinking that it would be lovely to have our own restaurant of a similar style. New Zealand was probably the best bet to come and do something totally different. We had a look at the restaurant industry here in Auckland, and we drove around New Zealand, went to the various other big cities, and then eventually we found number 108 Ponsonby Road, a building that was put up in 1918, 1918, I should say.
Okay.
And it fitted very well with the concept that we had of the 1920s era, which was all about prohibition in the United States. Our restaurant is first and foremost a restaurant.
Good food, wonderful food and wine.
Is the emphasis. But my business partner, Edward, his attention to detail is absolutely mind-boggling. And that is what makes our restaurant a point of difference.
The car outside.
The car outside.
The uniforms.
The uniforms of the staff. And of course, the funny thing, Gerard, is when we initially opened, we used to have 2 doormen. And the doorman used to walk up to the car and open the car doors. And of course, we quickly learned that New Zealanders are intimidated by that. They were also intimidated by the fact that we had 2 doormen. And so what we do now is we have only 1 doorman there who meets and greets the guests when they arrive. We believe that as soon as they walk through our glass doors,
they're transported into another world.
Transported back to the 1920s. They can shut out the hustle and bustle of everyday life and have a very relaxing evening. And we believe that given the fine food, the fine wine, the fine ambience, it's a holistic experience. And that's what we believe makes our restaurant different.
One of the funniest things that happened, and you were telling me before, and because you came from Russia, and yet you'd just been an accountant that went there and spent their work, everyone thought that you were a member of the Russian mafia. That must have really shocked you to hear that. How did that all come about?
Yeah, when I first heard about it, Gerald, I actually thought it was quite funny.
Yeah, it was a funny joke, yes.
And we thought, well, actually, that just adds to the intrigue and a little bit of the mystery. But it's actually become quite serious, and we are very worried about it because I think it's turning some people away because they think that, yes, the restaurant is owned by the Russian mafia. Well, the last time I checked, I wasn't a member, and I haven't seen any invitations in the mail. I guess what probably adds fuel to the rumor is the fact that Edward, my business partner, is from Russia. He's Russian. And of course, while we were busy fitting out the restaurant, I was very much ensconced in Moscow. I was working there. I only retired from the profession in February last year. So I guess if somebody had asked one of our staff members, they would, where the owner was, they would have said, no, he's in Russia, which of course only could have fueled the fire. It's also possible that one of the contractors might have jokingly said, because they were dealing with Ed, he looked after the whole contract. Yeah, he's from Russia. It's the Russian mafia. So,
but people have great imaginations, don't they? They want to believe that, as you say, that they wanted to believe it because it added a bit of spice. But you're saying now that look, a joke's a joke. Enough's enough. We thought it was funny in the beginning, but now it's absolutely ridiculous. There is no mafia connection.
There's absolutely no mafia connection, and every cent that is invested in the restaurant is being invested by us as shareholders. So
it also may have been, when you look at it, I mean, it looks like a lot of money has been spent on the restaurant. I mean, you have spent a lot of money. It's absolutely beautiful. So to the New Zealand mind, he thinks, oh, this has gone more than it should, I mean, this is not just an ordinary everyday restaurant. There's money being laundered here or something like that.
The only washing machine we've got in there, Gerard, is the one that does our linen upstairs. Of course, that's exactly the connotation of when you start talking about the Russian mafia, the next thought is, this must be money being laundered. Well, I didn't need to wash my money. It's hard-earned money. And yes, you're quite right. There's a large investment in the business. But it's done purposely because we recognize that there's a niche market for an upmarket restaurant. And as I said, the attention to detail obviously cost a lot of money. And everything in the restaurant had to be custom made because we're talking about reflecting something that's 80 years old.
Are you glad now that you came to New Zealand? Are you glad that it's Auckland? Are you Do you like the New Zealand lifestyle?
Yeah. Yes, we came to Auckland. I came here. We decided to come here because I fell in love with New Zealand the first time I visited it. There are a lot of similarities in certain parts of New Zealand with South Africa. So as a South African, and of course there are lots of South Africans in New Zealand. So it's not as if I'm the only one that's come here.
So we encourage all our viewers for a wonderful night out, Prohibition, and say hello to Colin Gardner while you're there.
Yeah.
Colin,
thank you,
thank
Gerard.
you for being on The Beat Goes On, and it's wonderful to hear, as a baby boomer, that you decided to come and live in New Zealand and join us here.
It's been a pleasure to be on the show with you, Gerard, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.